Welcome to the Mayor of Money podcast with former Burlington Mayor Rick Goldring of Goldring Financial Leadership. In this podcast, we provide successful business owners, including doctors and dentists, with insights to minimize tax and risk while maximizing retirement income and future legacy. Join us for this journey as Rick draws from years of experience and guest experts, including successful entrepreneurs, to provide unique strategies and approaches to estate and financial planning matters, as well as business in general. Now, on to the show.
So I'm very pleased today on this episode of the Mayor of Money to welcome Paul Sandhya and Prince John, who are both with the Business Development Bank of Canada. Now, the Business Development Bank has been around for a number of years. Most people have heard of it, but they don't know what it does. And in the tagline on the website, it says a venture capital financing company. So in any event, welcome, gentlemen, to the Mayor of Money. Really thrilled you're here and looking forward to a great discussion as we peel back the onion a little bit and find out more about what you do at BDC. So, Paul, why don't we start with you? Who owns BDC? What's the mandate of the organization, and who are you attempting to serve?
Sure. So, BDC, we're a Crown corporation. We're a self-funded organization, which means we don't use the taxpayers' money. We borrow our money from the open market. However, we are mandated by the federal government to help entrepreneurs to really support the Canadian economy for its growth, to create jobs, to listen to entrepreneurs, to be there to advise, to provide them financing solutions. You mentioned venture capital. There's, many divisions of BDC. Prince and I, myself, we work for the financing and advisory area of BDC, myself being the area leader for Halton. And I come from a chartered banking background as well. So kind of been on both sides of the banking world, you could say. And so that's kind of BDC in a nutshell, where, we're here to really support and grow the Canadian economy. And we're supplemental to the chartered banks, where there's a lot of times that we work very well closely with them on transactions. They're going to be the day-to-day bank, and we do a lot of extra very interesting things on our side.
So, and you provide all sorts of advisory services as well. So from looking at your website, there's different stages. You have the first 12 months, then 12 to 24 months, then post 24 months. You can't lend people money when they just started in business. They need to be around, I believe, for at least 12 months. But what can you do for a new business that you can't provide financing, maybe for the first 12 months, that you can after? But what can you do during that first 12 months to help them?
Prince? So, Rick, we actually do. Sorry, was that question for myself, Rick?
Either one of you can answer.
Okay. I'll kind of take it from there, and then Prince can jump in as well. We do finance startups on our side, and usually with a viable business plan, and depending on the transaction, we have an online loan system as well that we can go online and apply for a smaller loan. Prince and I, we work in the 2 to 50 million revenue space, which is considered a mid-market. We have our entrepreneurship center that works with companies start up all the way up to 2 million in revenue, that they have, they can cater to that size of a business. 12 months in, there's a lot of advisory opportunity as well. We have digital adoption programs that we're presenting currently. We could help with efficiency, operations support, marketing mandates, all those types of things, financial management as well, to get the business sound and running and ready for growth. And I already mentioned sort of the financing options. And to your point, 12 to 24 months, you have a track record. You can start kind of continuing with maybe working capital and different types of opportunities that way as well.
Prince, what's an example of a business you've had the opportunity to work with, where you look at your contribution and BDC's contribution to that bank that you're pretty happy with? Can you provide us with a general example without giving us the specific details? Can you provide us with the type of business and the circumstances that you were brought in to assist with?
Absolutely. Great question. this is an example where we made a difference and we financed this particular client. The client had been around from 1985. They're a manufacturing and distribution company. They had 3 lines of businesses. They had about 80 staff and $25 million in revenue pre-COVID. So during COVID, they lost about 50% of their revenue. And the present setup that they had wouldn't allow them to borrow more. And one of the things about that company was they did not even send one employee back. They decided that, when we go down, or we all stay in it together. So the corporation was referred to me, and I was working on the numbers, and what we did for them was that they were asking for working capital to sail through that particular year so that they could get set up for success for the coming years. We took a look at the numbers. The numbers were not looking very promising because obviously it was COVID. They stopped receiving support from the government side in terms of subsidies, so therefore it was making them look bad. But what we did was we took the chance with them. We financed a certain amount, and this year they're hopefully with that financing they're back on track. And I had a conversation with them. They were extremely thrilled and thankful. So these are things that we do, and it is right there in our mandate, because I believe personally, and Paul and the team at Halton believes, that every time we support a small and medium business, or a medium business in particular, it directly impacts the amount of jobs that are available out there. 88% of the jobs in Ontario are coming from the medium size company, and therefore that is a live example of a corporation which has been around for a long time, and therefore we are enabling it to thrive and develop with our financing there.
But Prince, you just said the numbers didn't look good when you're looking at this business initially. So what was the lens you were able to look through? Was it the fact that their character and integrity of keeping employees on during COVID when they didn't have the revenue to really pay them as much as they would have liked, but they hung in there and they were very loyal to their employees? Did that contribute to your consideration?
Certainly that did contribute. And at BDC, we call it creative financing. We have a bit more wiggle room, and that is one of our niche where the propensity to take higher risk in terms of lending a loan is much higher when it comes to BDC. So therefore, one of the components that we look at is their business strategy going forward. They didn't have control of what happened to them through COVID, and a lot of companies didn't have, but we looked at what they could do in the future, in the next couple of years, how sound were they in their planning. So they learned their lesson in terms of what they would not repeat again if something like that was to happen. And then we found out that they've been in business for well over 30 years, and every year they've met their targets, and except for those 2 years. So we consider that to be a blip. We act as a shock absorber to the industry. Just for you to know, Rick, BDC, we financed $2.6 billion during COVID. It was one of our highest years in financing. So we looked at the numbers, and we looked at their projections, and we said that we will stick with them. We'll take the chances, and that's how we were able to make that call.
So both of you have a history of commercial banking in the traditional banking sector. Do you get a little different feeling? Do you get a little different psychic income from the work you do, Paul, than you might have received working for a traditional bank?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before I go into it, I would like to give one more example, because I think it's very timely. Just from what I've seen the last few months, I'll give you one example of a transaction out in Milton that we've closed, close to $20 million transaction. And it was a succession plan. So we participated in the succession plan prior. It was, sons purchasing a business, long-time business from their father. And our growth and transition capital team came in and they financed the business purchase. So it took 5 years to pay that out. It got paid out. And there was then the building that they're occupying. They're paying rent to dad, right? Dad wanted market value for the building. And the sons, they wanted to purchase it, but they just spent all their money in buying the business. So they had no money to put down into the building. So we have the ability at BDC to finance right up to 100% loan to value for the right business and the right business model, depending on the industry projections, financials, etc. Obviously the management team as well. So in this particular transaction, we enabled the sons to purchase the building with no money down, and they were already occupying the building. And in this way, it helped the family with their succession plan as well, because there's other siblings, and the building owned by father was technically owned by the other siblings as well through inheritance in the will. So they wanted to get their money out and to the father so he could evenly distribute his holdings. So it worked out very well for the family, and I'm seeing a lot of that lately, a lot of that in our Halton region, because we cover off not just Burlington, but Oakville, Milton in the area. And so I wanted to throw that one out there as well, because the size and scope of the transaction, number one, but we do have the ability to go on larger transactions, because I find sometimes the market, they think that we're doing these high risk small loans, but it's not the case. We have the expertise and capability to go very complex and large size. And then number two, just with the succession planning, and that demographic is rapidly shifting, as you know, Rick, as well, just with businesses changing hands, the baby boomers retiring. It's a huge phenomenon, and it's going to continue for the foreseeable future. And so that was a nice example. Your question around the commercial bank, I made the move because here we only focus on the business. We go in, we listen. We are listeners. I always say this to my team as well. And Prince is laughing because, we go out, we knock a door, we say, hey, we're here for you. And give us a call when you need us, because we're going to keep letting you know that we're here. Like we want to be available for you. And it's not just lending out money. It's advice. It's connecting other businesses to other businesses as well, maybe for their own benefit, maybe from a supply chain benefit, connecting our COIs, which are accountants, lawyers, with new businesses. I'm having lunch today with a VP of a bank. So just our network, sharing that with business owners as well. So it's to create that ecosystem. So we're not out there selling a loan and walking away. We are creating these wholesome long-term relationships in the ecosystem, in a community that we're all part of, that we want to thrive. And I think that's the difference. That's the difference between my prior career, commercial banking, and BDC, that it is a lot more fulfilling, because you're doing a lot more than just going out and selling a product.
Well, there's a different lens you're looking through when you're working with your clients. There's a different lens than being a traditional commercial banker, and you don't have shareholders that you have to please, because the BDC has been around for how long now?
75 plus years.
Yeah,
we've been around for 75 years.
And it's a creation of it's a federal government agency that operates independently of the government.
We are operating independently, and to your point, we do. We don't have a shareholders, but our shareholders in government, and so we do answer. Right, we're very highly scrutinized and mandated by them to on our for example, just internally, who our suppliers are. We're very focused on the green initiative, buying local, supporting local. We are our work-life balance, our employee engagements, our risk tolerance. We still work like a bank, right? We are still creating financial models. We're analyzing risk. We are not just writing checks, so to speak. So there is a level of due diligence that we're doing as well, but we look at it, like to your point, from a different lens. So we have the ability to maybe do something outside the box, where it could be in the box with a rigid mindset at a traditional bank.
So, you've worked with a lot of businesses, both of you, in your careers in the traditional commercial banking sector, as well as what you're doing now with BDC. What are the common denominators of success for business owners? What do you see that most business owners have, where maybe people that aren't as successful don't have? Any insight there, Prince?
Sure, I could take that. I could go to a live example of that. Every day, each day, my job is to go and sit down with CEOs, and as Paul mentioned earlier, we listen. And it's more of, in my case, it's about 90% listening and 10% bringing out with what I've observed, maybe the denominating factor. And this happened yesterday. At Milton, one of our clients, is a CEO. So he had invested personally about $6 million in the business, and he was looking at a working capital financing. And he says, Prince, I have no idea how I'm going to get there. He's doubling his business size, he's doubling his employees, and I told him, guess what? You would figure out a way. Even if nobody else is by your side, you have figured it out in the past and you will figure it out. So one common denominator that we have seen across with a wide variety of entrepreneurs is their resilience and their ability to think out of the box, and their risk-taking ability. So if I were to put top three, their resilience, risk-taking abilities, and thinking out of the box, each and every one of them, I've observed that ability. That's the common denominator across all these successful and aspiring to be successful entrepreneurs here in Ontario.
I've interviewed on this show or this podcast, I've interviewed a number of very successful entrepreneurs. Jeff Paikin of New Horizon Homes Entrepreneur of the Year in Burlington. Ron Foxcroft, the Fox 40 Whistle, has got a great story. And there's just two, but there's many others. But I try to not try to find a chink in the armor, but I try to ask, well, do you ever get concerned that this initiative you're working on may not be successful? And the answer is no. The answer is absolutely not. When they enter into something, they're full bore. They're all in. And the thought of not being successful is just not anywhere in their brain.
Right.
And the gentleman you met yesterday, Prince, it sounds like same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we can all learn from that. I mean, you don't have to be in business to learn from that. We can all learn.
100%.
Yeah. Now, the particular advisory services, though, I mean, yes, you provide great, capital financing and creative ways to help people on the financing side. But with regard to the advisory channel and the advice that you can provide, what's the most prevalent form of advice or form of additional service besides lending that your clients take advantage of with you?
Sure. I can go in there. And the one piece before actually going into advisory is we do advisory on the financing side. And when you had the conversation around the commercial bank and us, if, for example, if somebody is looking to purchase a building, we'll go in early and just say, look, here's your numbers, here's what we've run, this is probably what you can afford, right? And so there's a lot of work up front happening from us, and that's advice, that's advisory, and allowing the entrepreneur to understand, okay, this is the size and scope of my affordability, this is where I'm comfortable going, and then they start the journey. I found, I've spent 16 plus years in commercial bank in a variety of roles. It was usually at the time where they're ready to pull the trigger that they brought the commercial bank in. Okay, give the financials, do the analysis, give the loan, and on we go. So a lot of that background work we're doing for clients right now, right? And they may not purchase anything or borrow any money from us for another year or 2 or 3, but we're getting them ready for that. We're preparing them for that. And that kind of takes me over then to the advisory services. We have a mandate such as financial management mandates that we can go in there, we can, help organize the books, make things more efficient on the financial management side. Maybe an entrepreneur grew too quickly. We're noticing that a business kind of, 5 million revenue starts scaling to 10, all of a sudden around that 10 million mark, they need to they're a little too small to hire a CFO, but they're too large to run everything themselves. So they need some support. They need to start adding systems in, right? And so we have a financial management mandate to support with that. We have operational efficiency mandates where, and this is a hot topic about the labor shortage right now, right? So we have professionals that we have available to us. They can walk the shop floor and start, really looking at ways to save time.
Are
Maybe
these employees of BDC, or are they people you bring in?
Yeah, so we have good. That's a good question, Rick. We have consultants that work for BDC, and then also we do have third parties as well that come in and help our advisory practice if and when needed, right? And so, just a quick example is maybe you have an employee at one side of the plant walking to the other side, and you start doing the math. Maybe they're walking an hour a day, where they could just be stationed in a certain spot in that plant, and all of a sudden you're saving an hour a day in dollars. That's significant savings when you multiply that by many employees, right? So we look for things like that for sure. E-commerce is a big thing. Digital technology we're focused on as well. Human resources. So all facets of the business we have ability to get in.
And so, and what do you charge your customers for this?
The best is to really get in touch with us with regards to the size and scope of the business, because
Okay.
we, Prince and I are mid-market space, 2 to 50 million revenue. And then we have our entrepreneurship center that has sort of the startup up to 2 million revenue. We also have a corporate finance group that we work very closely with, 50 million plus in revenue. So the mandates, they vary in size and scope. And this is really the messaging. We tailor to the client's need, and every business is so different.
Yeah.
Very different. The industry could be different. The risk tolerance of the entrepreneur could be different. The age, there's so many variables that the right mandate, for us to say, okay, it's going to be $10 for a mandate, that's not what we do. We go in, we really understand the need of the business, and then we'll tailor a solution based on that business.
So it's not an off-the-shelf type of
No.
people say, I need that, I'm going to grab that, and the price is there. It all depends. And you're like the the fancy executive medical clinics where you do the A to Z medicals and deep dive diagnostic before you recommend approaches and solutions for your clients.
Right.
Our small business team, Rick, has, there is some off-the-shelf solutions in our small business area. The group that Prince and I work with, the size and scope of that business, the mid-market space, there's no off-the-shelf solution for a business like that. There shouldn't be, right? There's so many variables that we need to understand. We need to go in there, the short, medium, long-term objectives of business and that individual owner. That way, that's when we start dissecting and then creating solutions. Sorry, Prince, I cut you off there.
No, just in a couple of things that are very close to my heart when it comes to the advisory services, Rick, as Paul was mentioning, is you were asking about the pricing. As Paul mentioned, there is no particular pricing, but this we could say that when compared to the big consulting firms out there, our advisory services are subsidized, and we do not bill them by the hour. So it's basically project based, and there are no cost overruns once there is a billable amount that are given to the client. We're not going to charge them by the hour. And we see through that particular project phase of when the implementation is done. That is number one. Number two, another thing that I would like for the listeners to take advantage of right now is called the Canadian Digital Adoption Plan. It's basically a grant by Department of Innovation and Science and Technology, where Canadian businesses can take advantage of the grant that is being provided by the government. And what we do is, if they have an implementation cost, let's say that with the grant they come up with a roadmap, and if they have an implementation cost of a ERP, BDC is mandated to go in with a financing of 0% to see the entrepreneurs through with that. So the government, the federal government, feels that the Canadian businesses are lagging behind in terms of visibility in the global market, and that is precisely why this advisory services exist. So that's the only thing that I would like to add.
So when you peel back the onion, in your case with BDC, there are so many different opportunities for you to serve business at different stages in so many different ways that you guys, I would suggest that not as many people know about you as should know about you, as far as the resources you're able to provide. How do you get the word out? How do you spread the word about BDC?
Yeah, so
Other
a lot
than
of
this podcast.
No, this is part of it. Rick. We're quite active on LinkedIn, and just the outreach. We're very prevalent in all our chambers of commerce, right? We're active with the Burlington chamber, and Oakville, Milton, Halton Hills as well. That's our area. Our office is in Burlington, and so obviously you have a warm spot for Burlington, but really just going door to door. And to your point, Rick, we just want business owners to know that we're here, and to just reach out and just have a chat. It's very it's non-invasive, like we're not in your face, but we want to be available. And then just with the marketplace and the thing, a lot of noise in the news with labor market, with supply chain, with wars, interest rates. I think it's good to have us in your corner, to have that name available, the number, when and if you need, that you can give us a call and sort of have that conversation really.
As a leader, Paul drives a team of 5 highly experienced individuals in the Halton region. And if you look at my schedule, my job, we create an ecosystem of people for the word to reach out. As Paul mentioned, we work with the Chamber of Commerce. Personally, I work with a lot of accounting partners, lawyers, to get the news out there. And I'm a LinkedIn influencer as well. And you know that, Rick, that every post of mine has an average impression of about 7,000 to 10,000 views on an average. So there are multiple ways in which we try to reach out to get the word out, because there's so much that we could do. And we are only complementary to the banks, and we work closely with other banks as well. Every week, at least, we sit down with 3 or 4 bankers from across the spectrum, and we work with joint deals whenever there's an opportunity. So those are the ways that we try to connect. And obviously, I hope that this particular podcast will hit at the heart of Halton with the next mayor. So that's great.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can to promote you. But listen, this has been tremendously insightful. I've learned a lot myself about the value of BDC and how you serve the business community. Paul, Sadhra, and Prince John, many thanks for being on the Mayor of Money. I appreciate you guys sharing your insights and wisdom, and good luck as you continue to help build the Canadian economy and create more jobs, because that's what you're doing. You're helping to create more successful businesses that are going to hire more people that are going to keep our economy strong. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick, and thanks for having us. And you're doing great things as well. I've heard the podcasts numerous times, and it's always refreshing. So thanks for having us here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank everybody for tuning in and listening and watching this edition of the Mayor of Money, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Mayor of Money podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. If you'd like to have a one-on-one discussion with Rick or have an idea for a particular guest or topic, contact him at rick@rickgoldring.com. See you next time on the Mayor of Money podcast.